Hi, I'm Noah Taubleib, and I'm here with Inon Zur, famous composer of films, games, who has worked on amazing projects like recently the Starfield game by Bethesda. Inon, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so I'll just be taking a brief moment of your time to run down some questions of your technical expertise, your experience in the industry, fun stuff like that. To get started, so you have a wide background of composing for both films and games and movie trailers, from stuff like from Marvel projects to obviously Starfield. What's it like working in such a wide medium with various different kind of aspects of games and films?
For me, it's all about discovering, and venturing and adventuring, and finding how music could work in a very different settings. And because music overall always need to give you one aspect, the emotional aspect. So there are few things that will never change. It doesn't matter if we're in a spaceship or in the jungle or bottom of the sea, still we feel something. We feel a certain emotion, and this is what the music needs to support. So music does two things at the same time. Music tells you where you are. Sometimes even music tells you when you are, but then also music needs to tell you how you feel.
Hmm.
So it's always more sort of like complicated and multi-layered than just, oh, it's sad. Because if you're doing it right, you say it's sad on the bottom of the sea where it's also having lots of scary monsters. Okay. So music could tell you everything at the same time if you do it right. But this is also what is so great about jumping into these certain, so many types of games because the styles are different, the art is different, the story is different, everything is different. But the bottom line is you still need to tell these stories to the player. So how to do it and what means to do it and really how to go about it, this is what gets me excited every time. And this is what really stretching and flexing my muscles, my creative muscles to do something that will really work well with the project.
Very well said. That your speech reminded me of this one movie I saw a few years ago, Black Swan, and the thesis of that movie was music and art is about telling a story. And I felt your comment resonated on that experience for me. So my next question, having watched your amazing game SoundCon presentation, I was impressed by the compositional techniques you used for Starfield, stuff like how you stacked three major chords to capture the mystery and wonder of space. I believe you called it the space chord. If you can trademark that, I would highly recommend it. That's just really cool. How do you come up with these technical ideas like this? Do you just noodle around until like that kind of thing comes up? Or when you're writing, do you think, oh, I have these X amount of pre-made knowledge that I can apply to this subject?
I think it's all of the above. Because I am noodling around, but also I have enough knowledge and experience to tell me, okay, this is what I'm looking for. So in order to, yes, you have to do a lot of noodling around with harmonies, with um, chords, with sounds, because some harmonies, for example, are sounding totally different when you orchestrate them differently. So to find the right combination, it takes time but again, what is guiding me into this kind of like exploration process is my vast experience in composing music, because it'll tell me now we're into something, now something happening, now let's try to develop this angle.
Got it. Would you ever, and I'm just curious, would you ever consider once you have like, I'm sure with all the knowledge you have, would you ever consider writing a book with I don't know, just all the tips and tricks you've come up with over the years?
I'd rather concentrate in composing music and let other people write the books.
Fair enough.
I'm not good with, doing these descriptions, but I could definitely describe what I'm doing by telling these stories during talks that I'm, you know, doing from time to time in conventions. So that,
Right.
yeah,
Okay. Now, my next question is, what is your DAW of choice?
it's Cubase.
Fair enough. And for when you're working with games, what is your middleware of choice? Wise, I assume.
I mean, usually I am not working in to implementing the music into the game. This is being done by the audio directors. I can recommend ways to implement the music. And today, if you work with Wise or Alias or Fmod for what it stands, or Bethesda has their own engine of choice that they're employing for their games. They're not using some. In many cases, they don't use these middlewares.
Oh,
So
just
every
straight into the game engine.
yeah, so they every company actually it comes up with whatever works for the game. But since I am not an employee that works inside the studios, um, believe me, there's enough on my plate to compose the music and have other people so talented and amazing, like Mark Lampert, for example, from Bethesda, that knows exactly what to do with the music and how to go about it.
Okay, that makes sense. So my next question is, how do you decide what instruments to use for any given project? So I remember from your Game Sound Con talk, one of your Starfield instruments was a flute. I believe you pitch shifted down. Care to like what was your creative process coming up with instrumentation?
This again goes back to what the story I want to tell. And each instrument has its own timbre and its own voice, so to speak. So when you hear it, for example, the flute is airy as like it could be shrilling, but it could be also very soft and frail. So I'm not going to use the flute to um describe a monster. Okay,
Mhm.
so it is like each scene or character calls maybe either a solo instrument or a combination of instruments that I think would help portray the way it looks and the way you feel about it the best. So again, experience and noodling.
Right, that makes sense. Um, so my next question is, so the industry is a little known for crunch periods and stuff like that. Um, have you ever had an issue where when you have like a deadline coming up from a composer and I mean, sorry, from a developer, do you ever feel like, oh, I need to get this done extra fast? Or I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you ever feel like you have to either overwork or compromise the work or your at least some of the higher ambitions of it in order to meet a deadline? Or have you found that you got your workload so tight down, so efficient that you're never worried about having to compromise or worry about getting the assets delivered on time?
I would say 99% of the time to 100%, I'm given way enough time to do whatever I want. Unlike movies and TVs, game has their own timeline and circles, and I've been brought usually quite early in the process. So usually I will finish composing way, way, way before even they need the music. And this is good because then they can take the music and work with it and get inspired by it rather than you sort of like, okay, everything is done, let's put the music in and then I write. Especially the way Bethesda is working is like they almost always start with the music, which is really a great way to go.
Right. Now, following that, I'm curious. Going back to my instrumentation question. Now, I obviously you said it has to do whatever fits the story. But I'm curious for when you want like live recorded instrumentation, I'm curious, how do you go about like that process? Do you personally like know and hire an orchestra? Does the parent company you're working for handle that for you? And I'm curious, like, do you have to, when that happens, do you like make a pitch to say, hey, this needs a live recording orchestra or whatever? And like, I'm just curious, what is the production process of getting live recordings like?
I will always try. Again, it depends on the soundscape because some games are more like heavily dependent on synth or sound design. So the whole orchestra maybe would not fit. But games like Starfield, for example, I was definitely vouching for recording live orchestra, and lucky that Todd Howard really believes in the power of live orchestra. So we, I'm always being given nice budget to work with live orchestra and to basically do whatever I want to do in order to bring um, what I think is, or to maximize the power of the score with and being enhanced by live orchestra.
Well, that's so like nice to hear that you have such like that the company is so invested in your creative vision that that you have all these amazing assets to work with that, like it sounds like Todd Howard himself like really values your expertise, which and clearly it shows. Uh, uh
Yes. No, I mean, Todd definitely trusts the process. He is with me and he's, weighing his opinion, which I'm taking very seriously. And, his vision and what he lays out as the vision is what is my total guideline. So that's why, this is the way it works.
and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to remember again from your game SoundCon talk. I remember you would actually run drafts of the Starfield intro theme by Todd, and then get revisions based on his notes. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. When it comes to major themes and definitely the main theme, Todd is all over it, and he's the only one that, you know, gives the note and okays it and everything.
Right. Very super cool how like you're that high up on the ladder. And
I don't
that
think it's about I think that it's not about me. I think it's about um the way Todd Howard values music overall.
really,
Could be any composer that Todd will work with. I mean, he sees music as one of the first thing he wants to start with, and for him, the music is extremely important.
that's I mean that's just heartwarming as a sound designer, like to be so valued.
Of course.
Um, so now a bit of a more wide-reaching, almost esoteric question. For anyone who wants to follow in your footsteps, what sort of qualification does a person need in order to be a successful composer like you? What sort of background? Like, how did you get your start? How you get your initial in the industry? What was your experience like getting to where you are now?
Get ready to fail. Get ready to get blows. Get ready to you know, uh, be disappointed and, sometimes not betrayed, but really like, you think sometimes that you're doing like the best job and it sometimes things just doesn't work out. What I'm trying to say here is even Michael Jordan said that like even him, okay, he scored an average like every he scores every four baskets or every four shots, so that means that he fails out of every four he fails three. So if you're not strong enough to fail and to stand back and keep on fighting and look for your voice and be optimistic, then you're not carved to follow anybody that has as many years as myself in the industry. And fighting means learning. Fighting means investing knowledge and improving all the time. It's not about just like, oh, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. No, it's like how to get it, finding a way how to get it, how to do things better. And that takes a lot of effort and a lot of ambition to do it. So if you're going to want to do that for so long, then you got to be ready for just ongoing fight. Nothing
Fair enough.
comes easy.
Uh, I don't know if you saw like my face light up when you said get ready for failure. I just find that very relatable. Um, Now, and a little extra question. So for someone, because a lot of people like when thinking about getting into the industry, they'll think, oh, I'll start getting the coffee for this for the guy who has the kind of job I want, or that sort of thing. If someone just hypothetically wanted to work under you, and like was ready to do any sort of job, and what kind of expertise would they need to have? What sort of like what would you look for in, say, like either an apprentice or just like an intern?
I'm not a classic example of somebody that employs interns because I do most of the things myself. I compose myself, I organize stuff myself. I have a an associate producer who is mixing my stuff with me, and
Cool.
he is sort of like my partner, but he's partnering almost on an equal level of professionality. So this is not like an apprentice or an intern.
Right.
Um, I don't need people to make me coffee. I know how to do that. I don't like to, basically, I like to work alone when I'm composing, and I don't like other people doing my job. So this is not very much Hollywood typical. I know that most composers in my stature they are having interns and assistants and apprentices. So I am not the right person to ask this question.
So that does neatly transition into another question. So your associate producer, I'm very curious, is that like someone you picked to work yourself that you already knew, or did you like did the company you work for, like be it Bethesda or any other, like assign one to you?
No, my associate producer, Ian Nikas, is actually someone that I knew before
Okay.
and I trusted, and our relationship sort of like built throughout the years. So I saw that he's very capable in doing everything I need him to do in order to support what we're doing together. So this is something that had been built throughout the years. I am not like picking up for every project somebody else. I like to work with the same people on the same team that had been proven to me again and again. The My orchestrator Paul Taylor is someone that I'm working for the last 28 years. And with Ian, I'm working at least 7 years.
Right.
So this is like, um, and obviously with Greg, again, we're talking about 16, 17 years.
Right.
Uh, the team is small, but it's sort of like a long-term relationship.
Right. And what was it like putting the team together? Just you just met very interesting, talented people on various projects over time, or
It's I don't know. I mean, for me, one of the most important thing in these kind of is reliability, loyalty, and the ability to understand what I'm looking for and finding ways to do them, even if some of them are not totally orthodox. um Way I am mixing or I'm producing sometimes are not the way that the classical people are doing. And
really?
so I'm somebody that is more flexible, the way to work with. And so the people who proven to be flexible enough, creative, and ready to work with me the way I believe is the right way, were the one that stayed with me.
And now I'm just very curious. What are some of the unorthodox methods you use to make your amazing work? Like, how would you say your process differs from the classical style composers?
For example, when people are recording live orchestra, then they will record the live orchestra and then they will take all the MIDI or anything else and they will stem it out and then they will give it to mixer. Everything is set and done and let's
Mhm.
go. We're working in very different way. Actually, when we record orchestra, then we're bringing it to the studio, but then the MIDI stays live.
Uh,
So many cases, I mean, so it not, it all being done in two computers, not one. One computer handles the MIDI and one computer handles the audio of the live orchestra. So for example, if I see that some of the MIDI stuff that worked with the MIDI orchestra worked well, but now doesn't, then I'm changing it on the fly. So nothing is locked
uh,
until the last moment of the mix. I'm not committing to anything until I'm done. And that's why the feel of my score is always very homogeneous and very like wholesome, and you don't really know where is MIDI and where is live and everything because we just mash things together.
okay. Very insightful. And thank you for giving that very in-depth view of your workflow. Now, just to close things out, I'll give you the floor. Are there any just general closing thoughts you'd like to give to the audience? Anything that's on your mind?
I'm sorry if my previous message was a bit negative regarding like get ready to fail,
Oh no, like
because
I went, I had that
the other
mindset. That was
side of
good.
the coin is because of that, when you succeed and when you feel that people are really behind um, what you're doing and people appreciate you, the feeling of achievement and victory is multiply 10 times
Yeah.
because of that. So maybe it's difficult to get there, but then the reward when you succeed is just amazing. So after that, you say, well, it is worthwhile this journey.
Wow, it's
So I
almost like a
wanted to,
video game in that
you
sense.
know, finish with a positive note here.
Very well said. All right. Thank you so much for your time. And very much appreciated.
Of course, and thank you for having me.
All right. See you, everybody.
All right, bye.